All right, welcome back to Badge of the Bone podcast. I'm Denny.
I'm Al.
Now let's get into another episode.
Let's do it.
Al, good evening.
Good evening, Denny. How are you this fine night?
I'm good. Good to see you as always.
Yes. Good to be here. Thank you for the beverage.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are continuing along with the season 5, which is great.
Yeah.
And we have a familiar guest tonight.
Yeah, somebody who is with us about not quite 2 years ago.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago.
And is back with an update.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Ken Good from down in Texas. I know last time we kind of went over his little bio, so I'll still give some information on that. But Ken's got his law degree from Texas Tech Law School. He was a member of Texas Tech Law Review. He's argued cases before Supreme Court of Texas and a Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, along with numerous Court of Appeals, including United States Court of Appeals and Fifth Circuit. So I know he's done a lot of work with bail reform down there, or I guess that had that big push for bail reform down there. We talked about that last time. Texas was having this big thing where they were apparently arresting folks, but there was really no bail or nothing. They were just, okay, here, you're arrested, but go on your day and please come back to court.
It was a couple localities down there that were dealing with that because Texas is, by and large, a pretty conservative, pretty law and order state, but it does have its localities.
It does.
And it was going along with a lot of what was going on around the rest of the country with, the criminals are victims. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And we talked about how it was causing a backlog of cases where they couldn't. And then what was happening is that the backlog was so huge that they just had to start just dismissing cases. So really, all you had to do was, if you get charged, just don't go to court.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to get tossed because they can't keep up, and that it was bad. So
yes.
We don't know if there's been a change. We'll talk about that tonight, and we're going to talk about since we talked and we at that time, lots happened since then, but we had that big push on decriminalizing everything. So, but now, like you said, it's been almost 2 years since Ken has been on. So now a little bit of data's come back to let us know how that has worked out for everybody. But we'll talk about that. But, without further ado, Mr. Ken Good, thank you for coming back on Badge to the Bone. It's great to have you again.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I always like to say, I can't believe I'm blessed enough to be a lawyer, but I'm probably most proud of being a husband and a daughter, a husband and a father of two. But I would have to add to my list. Last night I won a steak cook-off competition, so now Master Chef has to be added to the list.
What were you cooking?
I was at a conference, and this is our second year where we have a steak cook-off, and I think we were cooking sirloins, and so they were a lot thicker than what I was used to, but I held in there and came out with the prize. I am very proud of it.
Everybody's
look at that. It's a legit trophy and everything.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. I made an absolute fool of myself jumping up and down from winning. So,
and you should be. That is awesome. Good for you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I was like a little girl jumping up and down screaming like I was at some teeny bopper concert, but over winning a steak cook-off.
That is awesome. I'd have been excited too. That's pretty awesome. Good for you. But it's been a minute since we spoke to you, and like I said, I remember we talked about that whole push. Though, so it was a couple jurisdictions trying to reform the whole bail, and has there been a change to that? Has the pendulum started to swing back, or are they still dealing with that issue?
Ooh, that's a really good point. So much has happened since 2 years ago, but I would say yes, Harris County is still doing what they're doing, but with some changes.
Okay.
Every judge that had a contested seat in November lost. So,
Wow.
That's
but
right, because you guys elect what your so in Virginia we would say like general district court is for your misdemeanors and circuit court is for your felonies by and large.
mhm.
Your judges are elected. I don't know if you call it that down there in Texas, but your judges are all elected at all levels. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, so misdemeanors would be county
Okay.
court, and felonies would be district court. And
Okay.
so,
And
the
all elected judges.
yeah, all the way up to the Supreme Court, the Court of Criminal Appeals, every judge is
Got
elected
it.
in
Okay.
Texas.
Okay. Wow.
And so the problem is the DA, which is also elected in Harris County, he was supported by Soros, and he won
No.
by 1 point. And it was because the
Wow.
Republicans didn't put any money in the race. They thought that they couldn't win, and so they would have won that race too if they'd have put a little money in there to support the guy that was running.
So you had a change in the judges, but your DA really didn't have a change on that side.
No, but I will say, with everything else going on, he is probably putting his head down a little bit and trying to seem more moderate because of all of the controversy going on. And I think probably the thing that moderated the most was all the judges. Every judge that had an opponent was defeated, or every incumbent.
That's a message right there. That is a clear
Yeah.
message from the voters that they're not happy with the way things were going. So,
Yeah, but we still have a controversy going on right now where a defendant who killed, shot, or assisted in killing a police officer was released on bond. And so, as you can imagine, the police union was very upset about that, especially since the DA didn't even argue to hold the person without bond.
Holy shit.
wow. See, and that's
So wait a minute. Wait a minute. Harris County, just to be clear, because I mean, obviously we're sitting up here in Virginia. My map of Texas is pretty minimal. Um, Harris County, is that like what's the big locality there?
Houston,
Okay, okay. So
third
big
largest county in the
locality.
United States.
Okay, okay. And so lets out somebody that killed a police officer.
Well, and we've also had that. We've been in the national news in Houston because this 13-year-old girl snuck out of her house in the middle of the night to go to a convenience store, and she ends up getting uh, taken by two illegal aliens and then tortured, raped, killed over several hours.
yeah. I do remember seeing that.
Well, and I would
that.
say that, I mean, Harris County, God love them, is still driving bail policy statewide in Texas. So we've got some bills pending at the Texas legislature, which we're in the middle of session to try to address that and to strengthen the criminal justice system. Texas has gone the opposite direction of the country. They've strengthened the criminal justice system, the bail system over the last couple of years. But Harris County is an outlier, and they will continue to do that as long as they can.
That makes it, that makes it tough. And I feel for the folks that are working the streets on the police department there because I think we talked about this last time. You have that going on and you just feel defeated. You feel that all the work you do is tossed out the window. And then particularly you have an officer that's killed the line of duty and who's supposed to stand up and protect you, the DA, just turns a blind eye and cuts him loose. That is a morale killer.
Ken, what was the rationale for giving bail to somebody charged with the murder of a police officer?
The rationale was the district attorney's office was not arguing that he had be held in jail without bond. So in Texas, everyone has a right to bond and there's some charges that are authorized by the Texas Constitution. But the reality is the DA's office didn't argue to hold them in jail.
So basically, just sat there and sat
Yeah, it
on
was
his hands for the whole.
arguing over the amount of bail, and so the judge set it at. I mean, what they're reporting in the news that they set bail at $1 million. No, he had. I mean, the charge that he could have been kept in jail on, they set it at $500,000, and they had another bond at $500,000. And shock, he got out of jail on bond. I mean, if you didn't want him out of jail on the big charge, posted at $1 million, and he wouldn't have got out of jail.
God. Wow. That I don't have anything for that. I mean, it's just
I that I just cannot I can't wrap my head around a DA not making an argument
Well,
in a
in
situation
Harris
like that.
County, for this last 4 or 5 years, I've been arguing that, like a dog, they get one bite before they're considered dangerous. Well, in Harris County, at times, it seems like you get one free murder before they're going to hold you in jail when you commit a second murder. And we have examples of that. I mean, we just turned criminal safety on its head. Suddenly, we're favoring the murderer over the police officer victim in our criminal justice bail policies in Harris County.
man, and that's just not seeing any relief here. It's still moving on like that, correct?
Yes, but I think it's slowly changing and it is slowly improving. It just needs to be happening more quickly. Isn't the lesson from the immigration policies of Trump is we know how to do this? I mean, we knew how to enforce the immigration laws, and what do you know? We didn't need an additional law. We just needed somebody to enforce them. Well, we know how to decrease crime, and I think the lesson from Trump is if we will just support our law enforcement and do what we know works, crime will come down very quickly. And so when these counties or these cities enact these policies where they're uh, soft on crime, then shock of all shocks, crime is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed. I saw that Austin, Texas, was having issues as well with their DA, and I believe their DA was trying to prosecute some officers there in
Mm-hmm.
Austin. And from what I understand, the crime there has starting to get out of hand.
Yeah, but Travis County, which is Austin, that's actually Austin's the state capital, but Austin is probably the second most liberal area of the state.
Yeah,
It's just this little enclave, and I mean, even that DA, I mean, God bless him, he still won re-election. So I mean, he's still
wow,
very, very soft on crime, and I mean, and, but I think they're trying to get a lot better at arguing, or going underground. They're trying to hide their soft on crime policies now. They're not
sure.
willing to wear them on their sleeve like they were 2 years ago.
That's hard to do though, because
Yeah.
yeah, you may say one thing on the campaign trail when you're looking to get elected as a judge, but your record is your record. You know, um, what you do, I mean, it's there in black and white
hmm
forever.
Yeah, but you know why they're doing that is we've really uncovered in these last 2 years how these groups on the left, the Soros groups will go and find soft on crime candidates and then they'll give them money to run. And then once they win, they invite them to seminars where they're told, these are the policies that you will enact, the soft on crime policies. And it's a quid pro quo. And I mean, these policies are like, you will no longer seek enhancements. So um, you'll treat drug users like you will the dealer. And so 20 pounds of meth won't get you an enhancement. You'll just be treated as a drug user and you'll get 2 weeks in jail at most. Well, I mean, that's a cost of doing business for these people.
Hmm.
And so then after that, then you'll they have these next groups that will then issue these pseudo studies that say, oh, these soft on crime policies will make us more safe and they won't increase crime. And then they have these last final groups that they're like the press releases, the press groups that sell these policies. And so they are very well organized and it's going to take that type of organization, that type of infrastructure on the right to combat it. But I think in the last 2 years we've uncovered that. We've started talking about it. There's been books written about it, and so the public doesn't like that. And so you can see it starting to impact them kind of going underground a little bit. But you still have it. I mean, 2 days ago or a day ago we had the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, and the judge that won was saying, "Oh, Elon Musk is trying to buy our election." Yeah, Soros and one or two other
Yeah.
billionaires were giving that candidate money. They just had a better PR campaign.
Yeah, it's amazing that things they want to try to say that the other side is doing is the very things that they themselves are doing to try to win these elections.
Well, I would argue that it's not even. I mean, this is not a left-right issue. It really isn't.
It shouldn't be.
It is a. Do you want a safer community, or do you not? Do you understand the criminal mindset, or do you not? It's not a.
It shouldn't be.
You know,
It should be a common sense
I
issue.
could be the most leftist person on planet Earth and go, you know what? The guy who murdered a police officer probably needs to cool his heels in jail until his trial. I mean, that's not a leap.
It's not, but that's not
That's
what
not a
happens.
deeply ideological
But
thing.
historically, we've both parties have been law and order. It's just, but we've had
Yeah,
periods where we've had this division before. In the '60s, we went through this same cycle. We
true.
felt safe. We were more forgiving on our criminal laws. Crime started going up, and then the big fight was, okay, now crime's going up. What do we do about it? And then one side became entrenched. They weren't going to help, and we had backlash. And then the pendulum swung, and we got Reagan with the war on drugs. I
Yeah.
would argue that's exactly what we just had happen. Um, the pendulum swung pretty hard to the left. It was probably it was there longer than it should have been. We should have had this backlash 2 years ago. It didn't happen for various reasons. And so now that the pendulum is swinging back, and I would argue with Trump, it has, it's going to be harder, and it's going to be a harder swing to the right. And it may be there longer, but we've still got these entrenched areas where they're in denial. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen this before where the party that has terrible policy loses the presidential election, and they take the position, well, if we had just gone further in the crazy zone, we would have won.
Right. Right.
And we're hearing that. We're hearing that now from the Democrats. And so I think they probably need to lose one more election cycle and get spanked, and then they will become once again the law and order policy. You already can see elements of their party saying, "Oh, we need to be returned to law and order. We need to return to support our law enforcement." There's the Seattle in Seattle. There's in the city council there was something introduced to say that defund the police has been a failure.
Yep.
So you can see it. And
Yep.
but they need to continue losing at least one more national election before they right their ship. And we have to have them right their ship because both parties are historically law and order, and they need to return that. It's not healthy to have one party to be the way they are right now.
No, I would agree.
And if Seattle's saying that.
Yeah, if Seattle's saying, "Hey, this didn't work," then it's caused them problems. So if they're willing to come out, and I saw that, I read an article on that, and I was like, "Wow!" Of all places to finally start to admit, okay, these things are not good for our communities. That's big, and I think you're right. I think that shows that some are getting their head on straight and starting to kind of swing back towards the center and put that.
But I'm still
pendulum.
worried. I mean, look at Gascon. Gascon lost by over 20 points, and was the sitting DA in LA County. But he lost by 20 something points because his normal groups, the Soros groups, did not give him any money. In the meantime, they were spending their money filing lawsuits against law enforcement groups to do consent decrees to essentially impose all the Gascon edicts by court order so that they would remain in effect no matter who won. Now that should scare everybody.
So that's a good point. So let me ask you this, because you have a place like Los Angeles County, which is historically very left of center. But California, even though it's always been pretty left of center, has not always been soft on crime. But Gascon comes in. and he's a lunatic. He's just that man was God, but he was so bad that even in an area that is, historically liberal, historically Democrat, they're like, oh my God, this guy has got to go. So yeah, they're not putting money into it. I get it. But do you think that even if they had put money into it, that it would have swayed the election?
No, because Gascon, they did a removal petition on him, and the only reason why he wasn't removed a year earlier is because they declared many of the signatures invalid. And so
Hmm.
I would argue, in my opinion, that there was a manipulation of the system to prolong him as being in office. And so it was just a matter of time. Once they did that, there was no way he was going to survive. But another way in California that they're doing a backdoor uh, enforcement of their bad bail reform is they just don't have the capacity in their jails anymore for additional people.
No.
And they're refusing to build additional capacity. And so their prison system is capped on how many people can be in it. So anytime you hear, oh, we're doing this and it's going to make us safer, the safer part is a lie. We're doing it because we have to reduce the prison population, so we're going to release more criminals, and we're going to say you're going to be more safe. But it's all because they refuse to build additional capacity.
I don't know how you sustain that.
Well, that's been one of my arguments, that it's not sustainable, and so that's why I
Yeah.
always have good hope. But I mean, I just did an interview with a former assistant DA in New York over 5 years of New York's bail reform, and they've rolled it back 3 times. But he's arguing, look, the 3 times are just window dressing to make it look like they're doing something and they're not really doing anything. And he said, you would think the same thing. It's not sustainable, but the people that are in charge are entrenched and they're refusing to do anything. So what do you do? And they're doing the same thing. They want to close Rikers Island, which has an ultimate capacity of 20,000 people, and replace it with a local jails, which will have a capacity of 4 or 5,000.
Oh, that's
All you got to do is spend 5 minutes in metropolitan New York City and realize that's never going to work.
Yeah, that's right. And and if when they finish those regional things and they close, I mean they're never going to be able to close Rikers. I mean that would require a release over current capacity, 2,000 additional people right now to be released over what they're holding after all the bad bail reform. And the crime that we've had right now is going on there is a result of the ones they've released so far. I mean, how many studies there have been that says, and y'all know this, so much of the crime is committed by the same group of people over and
yep,
over.
reoffenders. Yep.
Yeah, the reoffenders. I mean, I
Yep.
like to think of it as in a city, you've got a city within a city, and that really small group commits probably 60% of the crime. And so you could reduce crime by 60% just by holding those people accountable. The problem we have is the gray area between the two cities. Those people are watching what we're doing on criminal justice, and every day, and they're deciding, am I going to be a law-abiding citizen or am I going to follow the criminals? And right now, like in New York and LA, I mean, they're going, well, there's no accountability, so there's no reason for me not to just be in the crime city today. We can influence those people the most and the fastest. And the problem is we're not, and we're not even trying. And I keep coming back to why? Why in these urban cities are we doing these policies? And I think there's a couple of reasons why we're doing it. But I think, y'all know law enforcement is the biggest budget item for a county. And if we can defund the police, or we can say
Mm.
we're going to save all this money, it's not being saved. It's being moved to, you know, social programs, which is where they want the money to go. And as we're refunding the police, we're not taking that money back from those social programs. We're just increasing the taxes.
Yeah. Uh, well, there was another item that I wanted to touch on. and it was when we're talking about crime and crime statistics, stuff like that, was the whole issue with the FBI crime statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to me, I thought that was a pretty big deal. FBI came out and said for 2022 that, hey, there was I think it was a 2% or a 2.1 or something like that percent reduction in crime. And of course, and then all your politicians and all your ones that have been on these bandwagons
Mm-hmm.
for all these politicians going, oh look, see, it's reduced crime, it's reduced what we're doing is actually working, and we're on the right track, and we're on the right frame of mind. Crime is going down, and come to find out, their stats were all wrong. And then not only that, they come back and go, well, it's a 4.5% increase in crime, but they don't say anything. They put it online, kind of sneak it online. You can, if you go look, you'll find it. But it's kind of like you've already told everybody it's a reduction, so nobody's really going back to look and see if it's right. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a local jurisdiction, if you were a local police department and you put out that you had a 2% crime reduction, and then come to find out that there was a problem with your stats or whatever, and you essentially released misinformation, you would be doing a press release and talking to the public and let them know that we had an error and this is it, and you would address it. But nothing. It was just, well, let's make this correction and kind of sneak it in there.
Look, I don't think there's anything you can say that can downplay how huge of an issue this is. I mean, all of these pseudoscience groups for the last 3 or 4 years have been issuing these fake studies, and they keep saying, "Oh, we're cooking the books." I mean, they don't say they're cooking the books on the numbers, but they do cook the books. And then at the very end, they say, "And the reason why we know that crime is not increasing is because you can look at the FBI statistics, and the
Yep.
FBI statistics support or further evidence that what we're saying is correct." And so, I mean, I've even done a debate with, an attorney from one of these activist groups that's filing this litigation across the country. And they're making this argument, oh, it's just a perception versus reality issue. We just perceive crime going up, but look at the FBI statistics. And then, so I finally had enough. Back in October of last year, I wrote an article talking about how here's all the reasons why we should question the FBI statistics. And then, wouldn't you know it, I mean, purely coincidence, 9 days later, the FBI updated their statistics and now
Wow.
showed that crime was going up. I mean, and that was the point in the campaign when suddenly the Democrats shifted and then just started calling Trump a Hitler, Trump a fascist, because
Right.
they could no longer talk about crime because
Yep.
their whole basis of the FBI statistics. But then one of those pseudoscience groups a week later issued a report saying, well, if crime is going up, it's not as a result of bail reform. And here's all the stuff. I mean, they're just doubling down because they were trying to throw a Hail Mary right before the election.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'll take, the position of, okay, crime isn't going up because of bail reform. But if crime is going up, then I want bad guys to stay behind bars. It's as simple,
Oh,
they may not be linked issues, and frankly,
oh,
I don't care.
no, they are linked issues. They're absolutely linked issues. There's data from Yolo County, Texas. I mean, Yolo County, California, where there was a DA and he kept his data during COVID. And so he compared what's the difference between a nonviolent offender who's released on a surety bond versus a nonviolent offender released on just simply release. We just release them. He
Recognizance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just called different things in different states. I think in California it's released on zero bail. New York released on no bond. And in Texas be released on a personal bond. And he found that the difference between those two types of release, that the person that's just simply released has a 200% greater chance of committing a violent offense in the next 18 months. Now,
Wow.
I mean, if we have data saying that, why would you ever use simple release unless you had no other choice?
Right. That should be pretty clear that it has an effect. I mean, and it just makes sense to me that's the other part of those statistics is those make sense. Those are reasonable. It sounds reasonable that if you have somebody that you're cutting loose that has nothing to kind of tie them down or kind of have some consequences to what they do, then they just feel like, hey man, nothing happens to me.
Well, but y'all know this. I mean, when someone you got two defendants that have been arrested. One is a first time offender. One has been arrested 10 or 12 times for the same offense. Treating these two people the same is freaking crazy.
Right. And that should never happen.
But
that
in our urban areas,
happen.
In our urban areas, when we do charge-based release, where if they're charged with this crime, this is the way we treat them, irrespective of how many times they've been released on that for that crime. That's lunacy, and that's why we're getting this trouble in our urban areas. And it just makes common sense that not holding them accountable, they see that as a green light to commit more crime.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so back to on the FBI stats, I don't recall exactly what they said was the reason that they had a discrepancy.
There's a whole long story here, but the FBI has been transitioning from one data collection method to a new one, and the new one required all the law enforcement agencies to get new machines or new equipment, and so even at the very start, when all these pseudoscience groups were relying upon their data, I mean the two largest in law enforcement groups in the country weren't even reporting. So it's going to get more and more, there's going to be more and more discrepancies as more and more law enforcement agencies get the equipment upgrade, and the data just gets updated automatically. I mean, you could say that's what happens. A couple more places got their new equipment, and so it just automatically updated the system. But I don't believe in coincidences. And I don't believe that just mysteriously happened 1 month or less than a month before the election. I mean, I would say, gosh, if I was the FBI, I would be wanting my true crime statistics to come out before Donald Trump took office, not after. And I was, when that came out, I was like, I think Donald Trump's going to win, because I don't think the FBI is playing games. I think they want this stuff to come out now before he takes office instead of after.
Yeah, I think there's a high likelihood on that. I think the increase, and I'm sure you would probably agree, but the increase they're showing, I think that's best case scenario.
Oh yeah. It's
I
still
think the
incomplete.
increase is way worse. I think you're going to find that it's much worse than what even that shows.
Did it break it down by crime type category?
Yes,
it did. It did.
Where were we seeing the worst?
Well, but the problem is,
crimes?
I mean, the problem is since 2019, which was our high water mark for fighting crime, crime's probably gone up 40% by average. But, these groups now like to say, well, over the last 2 years, crime's down 20%. What we're doing is working. And what they don't, ever say is crime's up by, huge numbers from the high water mark on crime, or us fighting crime. And so they're just wanting to make the new normal a 20% increase on crime, and then want to push it and make it worse by releasing more criminals because of this, these things that they're doing where they are going to artificially limit the number of people that they can have in jail. And that's that's just not sustainable. That will either force vigilante justice, or we will have to undo these things.
Yeah, and you cannot discount the level of disengagement that law enforcement has had over the last 4 or 5 years coming off George Floyd, and the reduction in strength.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there's
how does that affect statistics?
Well,
it's gonna.
Well, and that's why it makes sense that it goes. You can't tell me crime is going down when I know factually that law enforcement, by and large, right now has reduced its proactive efforts significantly because officers are worried about doing their job. They're worried about doing their job, worried about, am I going to get charged? Am I going to be the next YouTube sensation that's going to destroy my life, even when I did the right thing? Or I'm going to be like areas like Harris County where I'm out here busting my hump every day and I'm trying to make great arrests and do things for the community, and they're just turning around and cutting them right back loose on the street. And it seems like it's all for nothing. So then it's like, well, I'm just going to push my patrol car around and answer my calls, and I'm not getting out the car unless I have to, and that's what happens. And then you don't have the staff anyway.
Yeah, you're seeing more and more of that where, law enforcement does not feel, it's not that they don't feel loved, they don't feel supported. And
Right.
in our urban areas, they're not being supported. But I think one of the great things from Trump and what I look forward to seeing going forward is the turnaround is going to be so quick in our non-urban areas, and the contrast with the urban areas is going to be so drastic. It can't be hidden. And how are our friends on the left going to react at that point? Because it's going to be pretty stark, and they can only be lied to for so long.
And that's true. And do you think that the turnaround in your, like say, your non-urban areas, do you think that turnaround is going to kind of put the pressure on some of these urban areas to start making those changes, where people are going to go, look, these counties and stuff next to us are starting to do well. Things are starting to do good for them, but us living here in the city or in the urban area, it's not. It's continuing to be the same. Do you think that's going to pressure some change potentially?
I think so, but I'm afraid that I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna on this issue because, when I talked to the former assistant DA in New York, he was like, "Yeah, that's not really what's going on. They're just sticking to their guns, and they're doing, trying to do face saving changes that make it look like they're doing something when they're not." And I think we're now in that period of time where they want to appear like they are returning to law and order, but they're really not. And they need to be careful because all that is, we've been through this period where we're covering up, we're censoring things. Right before the election, I posted a story on Facebook about cartels taking over the legal marijuana market in California, and it was immediately deleted. And I'm like, this has got to be a mistake. And so I reposted it, and it immediately got deleted again. And so, being the Pollyanna person I am, or law enforcement guy, I just thought, well, maybe I was fooled. Maybe this was a fake story. But then you started hearing Trump talk about it, and then you find out that they're censoring those types of things. And then after the election, they quit. I was able to do not only post the story, but then do a podcast with the author of the story, highlighting how the legal marijuana trade is being taken over by the cartels. And then we've had all this discussion about with Trump about how that's taking place, and he's designated those groups as terrorist groups. So, the cover up of this information, the censure of this information has been, I think, a lot worse than we ever thought. And as it comes out, the backlash from it will be bigger than it would have been if they had not covered it up.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think when people start discovering the things that have been hidden from them, it always makes it worse. It always makes it worse when you cover it up.
That's what happens when my daughter does it, even if it's over a grade when she was in school. And that's what happens when you do it to the public.
Right.
Nobody stands for the cover up.
Right. No, everybody wants to be treated with the truth. Give me the information and let me make the decision on what I think about it, not spoon feed me what you want me to think. So that definitely needs to come around, and hopefully it is.
But that's one of the issues that I'm hoping that y'all can help me with understanding. Why? Why do we have to cover up what the truth is? Why do we have to lie to the public? And why is it especially a problem in our urban areas that we have decided to favor the criminal over the victim and have this debate over crazy crap?
I'm going to need to pour another drink for that one. All right.
Yeah,
fuck it. We'll just go down the rabbit hole. people get very accustomed to their worldview, I think. I mean, if we're really going to explore this issue, people get accustomed to their worldview, how they see things, and how they see things is many times reality, even if it isn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think you have a segment of society that still takes this. It's kind of a twofold position, right? You know, the oppressed versus the oppressor argument,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which we've academia has played this out over a number of different scenarios, but we the cops are the oppressor and the offender is the oppressed. And if they were not oppressed, they would not be offending,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the victim, right? And I think there's a lot of people. I think even very well intentioned people, right? People that good people that have this mindset.
Well, let me give you a situation and ask you what you think about it, because I think it plays real well with what you're saying. But there was a period of time where we every 6 months before every national election, we had a
Mm-hmm.
scandal, and we would have protests for some alleged mistreatment of some minority, and we would
Mm-hmm.
have this whole debate. Oh, you are being mistreated, and you need to get angry, and you need to come out and vote in
Mm-hmm.
larger numbers. And it worked for a period of time. But
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
think these groups that you mentioned discovered that it was just political rhetoric. You would come out and vote in higher numbers, you would get your people elected, and then nothing would change. And so what happened was those groups started voting for the true believers of those positions. And so we've gone through a period where we've enacted the crazies, I would say. From my viewpoint, I consider their positions the crazies. And now we've got to the point where we can't have that scandal 6 months before election because it's happened so long that we will now have a backlash to the backlash. But we still have the crazies that we have to ferret out of the system, and they're continuing to do a lot of damage. It's kind of like they've created a mob and now they've lost control of the mob. What do you think about that?
Maybe.
I
I
was
mean,
hoping for more than maybe. I was like, gosh, Ken,
I
you're a
don't I don't know.
genius.
uh, I I I don't know. I mean, well,
I think there is a lot to that though, because I do believe that a lot of that has happened where you've got this mob group stuff, and then now they've just kind of snowballed, and
Mm-hmm.
and now we can't get that ball to stop rolling. We can't slow it down. It's gotten out of hand, and
but see, okay, all right. So what you're saying, Ken, with respect, that sounds a little conspiratorial to me,
I
right?
agree, it
And
does. I agree.
I am loath, as a couple of my friends will tell you, because it's a very annoying trait. A trait of mine is I kind of reject conspiracy a lot, but but what Denny was saying, people get they're going to believe what they want to believe, right? So if I believe that the offender is the victim, right? I believe this in my core, no matter how wrongheaded I actually am, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe this. It people have beliefs that are that strong and that ingrained. It takes an awful lot to beat it out of them, right? It really does. People don't want to turn around and go, yeah, shit, maybe I was too soft on crime. And you know, I give this example. Like a very good old friend of mine lives in Metro Seattle or area, and he is, God bless him, so far left, he's like fallen over the edge, right? Politically, right? He is left of left. I want to give him a hammer and sickle for his birthday. Um, and last time I saw him was last summer. We were together, and he goes, "Oh man, the crime in Seattle, and there's this park, and it's in a neighborhood, and all the people that are in there, they're shooting up, they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing the other thing." And I'd heard about this place on the news, right? And I'd read a couple articles on it, and I'm like, yeah, wow, yeah, so crime's bad. He's like, oh man, I don't know how I got that. I'm like, that sounds terrible. I mean, so my point is he is complaining about this, right?
Yeah.
And it is really like he's recognizing it, but he cannot put his ingrained beliefs and ideologies to the side just enough to make room for, maybe we've been a little too soft on crime.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But we've been through this before, like we've already said in the 60s. And the people that called for change, the first ones, were the minority pastors in our urban cities because they saw what those policies were doing to their parishioners, especially their young men. And so I would say that that's where it's going to come from again. Probably the reason why it's been delayed is now we've uncovered all this U.S. aid where we're giving payoffs to people to stop them from realizing that these policies are not working. I know that's still a little conspiracy, but I think we've uncovered enough of that where we can say that's what's taking place. And again, I think that will impact the backlash, and so it will be stronger. And I think the backlash is just starting right now. Um, I think to kind of address what you said about, a little bit too conspiratorial. I think every 6 months before a national election, I don't think that's conspiratorial. I think that was a national campaign strategy that was being used and used effectively. I just think it's run its course, but we'll see. I think time is always the best truth teller, and but I will say, if we don't recognize the mistakes of our past, then we will continue to make them today. And I think that's what we've done. We've committed the same mistakes of the 60s, but the pendulum swung so much harder to the left because of all the money and the coordination to sustain it longer than it should have been sustained. I think the big scandal here is these pseudoscience groups cooking the books. And I think they're vulnerable to just outright manipulation allegations.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is a huge, I don't want to say a threat, but a huge danger is all those fake numbers, fake statistics that people are seeing, and they're taking it to be truth.
The public, how can they differentiate between a pseudoscience group and law enforcement? Historically, law enforcement has been the number one source on crime statistics. We're just coming out of a period where these pseudoscience groups are saying, don't believe y'all. Y'all
Right.
are law enforcement. So obviously you're suspect because you're the biggest budget item in the county and you're just wanting to increase that. I mean, the public doesn't know who to believe. And historically, y'all's numbers are the most accurate. And the time period that we've just been through, I would say, proves that once again, those are the most accurate numbers.
Yep, I think you're right.
They are. They always will be. And this is something that I'll harp on law enforcement for, even as somebody who did an entire career in it. We're terrible about advocating for ourselves and speaking up. And so the agencies, I don't care if it's FBI or NYPD or Mayberry PD, you have the bully pulpit, right?
I agree.
You're the one who can get out there, call all the news outlets in your area and go, hey, we're having a presser at 3 p.m. on the courthouse steps. And they'll show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where the individual agencies, again, from the FBI on down, have to use that bully pulpit and say, no, this is what it is.
But
This is what it really is.
we need more coordination. I mean, if we're going to allow these billionaires to throw money at these types of policies and set up these groups, then we're going to have the coordination on the opposite side with the truth. And we've got to do a better job, and we've got to get a system in place. And I know that those are in discussions, but I would really say the difference in the Wisconsin race that just finished was we have the right wing groups being new and don't have the sophistication of the groups that are supporting the other side of the argument, and that will improve with time. But I just don't like to see our elections determined by billionaires throwing money at different sides of the same issue. We need to get that money out of the election, but until we figure out how to do that, this is where we are.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll have to see how it shakes out, but Ken, I know we've been going for a while. It's been so great to have you on. I think we'll have to try to see if we can't let some time pass and we link up again as things progress on and see what changes and see if the pendulum truly does start to swing back the other way. But like you say, time is the teller of it.
Well, I think the next big thing is the midterm election. If the Republicans hold the House, then Katie barred the door on Trump's final 2 years, and he will probably be one of the most consequential presidents of our lifetimes. If the Democrats take the House, then you probably should anticipate him being impeached for a third time or a fourth time, whatever it is. He'll set a record of impeachments because they'll be doing everything they can to harm him, to prevent him from pushing these things that he's doing so well. I think that there is no other president, there's no other candidate that we've ever had in our history that could have withstood what Trump has gone through. I think he is going to. Somebody made a good point the other day. They were saying, for the rest of your life and my life, we're going to be watching movies about Trump's rise to power and getting reelected president, and then whatever he does during this time. I mean, history would say the only other person to ever do this is Grover Cleveland, and he ended his second term with record low, public support. And so the question is whether Trump is going to learn the lessons of that, and so we'll see. We will absolutely see. If he fights crime, immigration, and does what he's been doing, they're going to pull out all the stops. And so the story's not finished being written on that. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But we've already seen a dramatic impact on immigration. And so I do believe we'll see a dramatic impact on crime as well.
I agree with that. I think crime will see that huge impact, which will be good. But man, thank you so much for coming on again. It's great to see you, and congratulations on your Master Chef. I'm still super proud. Let me see that thing again. Look at that, Al.
Look at this.
That is impressive.
The guy that holds this must know how to cook a steak.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to hell with his law degree, he cooked a hell of a sirloin.
Right, man. That is just fantastic.
All right, guys. Well, it's good to see you, and I hope you are doing well.
Yep, you as well, and you take care.
Thank you, Ken.
Bye, guys.
All right, man. That was good to have Ken back on.
Yeah, it was nice to see him. Glad he's staying busy.
Yep.
Still doing the good work.
It's cool to have a prior guest on from quite a while though.
Been a couple years almost.
Yeah, I mean almost 2 years. So, but yeah, so it is good to hear that maybe some things are starting to kind of maybe swing back to be a little more positive on the crime and law enforcement side. Maybe getting a little more tougher on crime stances going, but it looks like it's still got to fight.
Yeah, and I think that fight's going to be with us for a little while longer. But we've had 5 years, 5 years post 2020.
Yeah,
all the things that went down with that. But people are going to get, people get tired of not feeling safe, right?
They do, but and I didn't bring it up when we were talking, but part of it is, if you take like Harris County, I know you talked about Harris County, And I think they're on the wrong track for, other than of course with the judges. That's a sign that the voters have started to speak up of what they want. But at the end of the day, if you have an area like that, or like Austin where they had crime going up and they're trying to prosecute police, if they continue to elect these people, then if that's what that community wants, then they're the ones that are going to have to live with it at the end of the day.
Amen.
That's what the elections are for. Hey, if that's what your community wants and you're okay with the crime rate and it doesn't bother you and you don't think it's an issue, then
guess what? I cannot see it from my house.
That's exactly right. So right. So if that's what they want, I think over time folks might start to go, this is not really working, and maybe that's where you get the change. But as long as people are okay with it, then that's how they vote, and that's how they want their communities to roll. So
right, and I will say this again. I really do not think that this needs to be a partisan political issue. It just realistically it probably will be.
I think it is.
I'm just completely wrong on that. But I don't think it needs to be, right? I don't care if you're a conservative or Republican or a liberal Democrat. Everybody wants to live in a safe and secure community, right?
Sure.
You would think, right? And people just are there offenders that need a second chance? Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. The sheriff in my county where I live,
yep,
who has a nationally, I dare say, internationally recognized drug treatment program.
Yep.
Where he has managed to slash recidivism with that. That should be applauded, right? But there are people, if you're taking, like Ken pointed out, that case where you're taking a 13-year-old girl off the street and you're raping her and torturing her and ultimately murdering her. Are these people that we can save? No, not at all.
No,
not at all. Do they need to be behind bars forever? Yes.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, it for me, I think it just comes down to the simple word of balance. Striking a balance.
Exactly.
What happens, I feel like folks get so wrapped up on these, we have to look after the criminals and we have to make sure we're not trampling their rights and they have freedoms, and they go so far to it that they're willing to forego the community safety because they're just too wrapped up with that.
I would even take it in a different direction. Not the criminals' rights. They have rights and they should have rights. But it's this idea that if the police are locking you up, what did the police do? Where did the police conspire to lock that person up? What kind of illegal acts did they perpetrate to lock that? That's bullshit.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying is that they're kind of going so far to the other side, and where the police are bad, and we're willing to let the community burn down because we just think the police are bad, and we don't want.
They got the wrong guy,
right?
Not just now, but every time.
As opposed to sliding back to kind of to some balance, going, okay, yeah,
right.
I definitely want to make sure that people get their due process, and we'll make sure that we're not locking everybody up. We're not going to the far other side where we're just locking everybody up and throwing away the key and nobody ever has a second chance. We want to make sure that there are some folks that can be rehabilitated. Kind of, again, back to the middle. It's just
but if you are a frequent flyer to the criminal justice system,
you're done.
And you're doing something that is frankly barbaric. You need to go.
Well, yeah.
And I don't know why that would be a difficult decision at any point.
It shouldn't. It's just about digging heels in on, I guess, what you think, and you just, I don't know, bro.
I think the pendulum.
It should be a common sense. It should be a common. Yeah. We want to be safe. We want to keep things safe.
Fair. I mean, we want to be fair, right?
Yep.
And that's no problem in being fair, but there's a segment of the population. It's a very small segment.
I agree.
That just does not need to be walking around the rest of the population.
Right.
And understanding that those people exist, and I'll say this in closing, you and I've talked off air, because we're not a political show.
Sure.
Right. And you and I kind of, we try to avoid a lot of overtly political or partisan conversation.
Sure.
But there's a segment in our society. There's a segment that is in Western society in general that simply doesn't believe that evil exists.
Now, that's true, too, and that's dangerous.
And evil does exist. It 100% exists. And it thrives on the fact that it finds people
that don't think it exists.
Exactly. 100%. And it exists. It is a minority.
Sure.
It is a significant, I will say it is a significant minority, because if you think about all the people you arrested over the course of your career, how many of those people were evil? I mean, evil. I dare say that it is a pretty substantial minority.
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
that were legit, like, evil, like pentagrams and pitchforks, evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's very. I would say it's rare,
right,
that you have that true evil. Now you have bad people, or you have people that make bad decisions, and that's the majority of what
you have. You have people.
The majority is just people that make bad decisions, poor decisions, can't keep their life together.
Poor decisions, poor impulse control, addiction. They may even just be evil in the moment, right?
Right. That's by and large what you're dealing with. But you're right. That true, actual, deep down, just evil.
But real evil exists.
It does. It is out there.
And there's just kind of something that's come up. I dare say, certainly within our lifetimes, recent lifetimes, that this idea of evil existing just for whatever reason doesn't compute. People are like, oh, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not a thing. No, it's actually a thing. And you need to be able to recognize those people and fairly, justly take them away from the rest of society.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, Al, I think that's going to wrap us up.
I believe that it does.
So in the meantime, where can they?
They can find us at badgetothebone.com. They can also find us on Facebook at Badge to the Bone.
Make sure to like and follow us. Tell us what you think about the show. Also, make sure to shoot us an email at wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. That's wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. Again, let us know what you think. You may have a guest idea, suggestions. We've been getting a lot of emails lately. Keep them coming. We appreciate it. But Al, until then, as always, be safe
and be well.